to Deep Sleep Stories. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep, a short review, comment, or sharing the podcast with someone who might benefit is a simple and meaningful way to support the show so that we may continue to offer it for free. Now, take a slow, gentle breath and let's begin tonight's story. Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where your day can gently unravel and drift away. And tonight, you will be carried into a quiet forest where a simple picnic beneath waking trees becomes a doorway to calm. For now, there is nothing you need to do but rest. Let your body find a comfortable position. Let your shoulders soften a little. If it feels right, let your eyes grow heavy or close. Take a slow breath in, letting the air fill your chest, your rib cage widening softly. Hold it for the briefest moment. Then exhale, easy and long, as if releasing a sigh that you have been waiting to let go all day. Again, a breath in. Cool air at the tip of the nose, filling the lungs, and out, letting go of the weight across your back, across your mind. As you breathe, imagine yourself standing at the edge of a forest just after sunrise. The sky is pale and luminous, and the trees ahead are dark silhouettes waiting. The earth beneath your feet is damp and fragrant, as if the night has just slipped away, leaving a silver shimmer of dew on every blade of grass. You notice the gentle hush of the world here, the soft hush that comes before birds begin their full morning songs. The air smells of moss and leaves and distant rain. Somewhere nearby, water is moving, perhaps a stream, perhaps a river, its voice low and comforting. You are holding a woven basket, light in your hand, filled with soft bread, ripe fruit, a flask of warm tea, and a blanket folded neatly. There is no rush, no obligations, only the promise of a picnic beneath trees that are more than they seem, trees that wake slowly with the day, their awareness as quiet and patient as the turning of seasons. With each breath, the forest becomes clearer in your mind. The worries of the day feel further away, a little dimmer, a little smaller. In your imagination, you begin to walk toward the trees. With every step, your thoughts grow slower, like leaves drifting down through still air. And as your day fades behind you, another figure comes into view, already inside this story, already walking toward that same forest, toward that same gentle morning. Now the story turns to them. They were called Ari, though the trees would never use that name. Names like that belong to towns and letters and the clatter of markets. The forest knew them instead by the rhythm of their footsteps, by the warmth of their hands when they brushed against a trunk, by the way their breath misted in the cool early air. Ari walked along the narrow path that led from the village to the forest, their basket swinging lightly at their side. The sun had only just begun to lift itself above the horizon, and its light was soft enough to pass for a dream. Mist drifted across the fields like thoughts that had not yet decided where to settle. The path was familiar to Ari, but each morning like this felt new. The edges of the world were blurred, as if the lines between waking and sleeping had not yet finished forming. Dew clung to the tips of every blade of grass, tiny pearls of morning that caught the light whenever the sun found them. The forest ahead was a deep, grand presence. The trees rose tall and still, their branches woven together in a canopy that looked, from a distance, almost like a single enormous shape. Yet within that stillness, something shifted, slow, deliberate, ancient. The trees were waking. Ari felt it before they saw it. It began as a change in the air, a subtle stirring like a breath drawn in. The mist along the border of the forest seemed to pause, to shiver, as if touched by something invisible. The leaves high above rustled, not in the way they did when wind passed through them, but in a gentler, more curious way, as though they were stretching after a long, deep sleep. This was why Ari had chosen this place this time. The waking of the trees was not a spectacle. It was not lightning or thunder, nor a blaze of color. It was quieter, something that would be missed by anyone walking too quickly, anyone speaking too loudly. It was something only those who moved slowly could feel. Ari stepped beneath the first arch of branches and entered the forest. The light changed at once. Outside, the dawn had been pale and open. Under the trees, it was dappled and green, filtered through layers of leaves. Shafts of gentle brightness found their way between the trunks, laying soft patterns on the forest floor. Moss clung to stones, thick and springy, and small ferns curled and unfurled along the edges of the path. There was a faint hum so low that Ari almost mistook it for silence. It was the sound of sap rising, of roots drinking from the earth, of bark swelling with the dampness of morning. It was the forest's heartbeat. Slow and steady, older than any story Ari had heard. A bird called from somewhere high above, a single clear note that hung in the air like a drop of water. Another bird answered from deeper within the trees, the sound overlapping and then fading. Small creatures rustled in the undergrowth, their movements unhurried, like the shifting of dreams. Ari followed the path deeper into the forest, the basket warm against their hip. Inside it, wrapped in cloth and care, were thick slices of brown bread spread with soft cheese and honey. There were apples that still smelled faintly of the orchard, and a little jar of dark berry jam. There was a small tin of biscuits, lightly sugared, and the flask of tea that Ari had steeped just before leaving, fragrant with herbs from their windowsill pots. But the most important thing in the basket was the blanket. It was woven from threads of soft wool, worn smooth by years of use, dyed in gentle shades of blue and green. It carried the faint scent of home, of lavender soap and sun-dried laundry. Ari always brought it when they visited the forest. It felt right to bring something cherished into a place that treasured everything it held. Eventually the path opened into a small clearing, the place where Ari always came when they sought the company of the waking trees. Here the trunks grew in a loose circle, their roots reaching toward one another beneath the soil. The ground was carpeted in emerald moss and tiny creeping plants, each leaf glossy with dew. Above, the branches intertwined to form a loose canopy, a wide green bowl that held the sky. Here the trees were older. Their bark was thick and ridged, furrowed with lines that told of storms weathered and seasons past. Some leaned slightly toward the center of the clearing as though listening, as though waiting. Ari stepped into the middle of the clearing and paused. They placed the basket gently on the moss, then raised a hand to touch the nearest trunk. The bark was cool and slightly damp beneath their palm, rough in a way that felt steady and sure. "Good morning," Ari whispered, though the sound of their voice seemed to dissolve into the hush of the forest. The tree did not answer with words. It answered with a slight easing in the air, as if the clearing itself had taken a breath. A faint warmth seemed to glow beneath the bark, a slow pulse that met the warmth of Ari's hand. Around the clearing, other trunks stirred in the same quiet way. A few leaves shivered without the help of the breeze. A scattering of light shifted across the moss, as though the canopy above had moved a fraction, letting more of the day in. It was enough. The forest had acknowledged them. Ari spread the blanket in the center of the clearing, smoothing it gently over the moss. The fabric settled easily, its soft edges melting into the earth. They set down the basket and began to unwrap the food, moving slowly, as if they were part of the forest's own unhurried rhythm. They placed the bread on a small wooden board, arranged the slices in a pale crescent shape. They set out the apples, their skins polished and gleaming, and opened the jar of jam, its dark surface catching the light like a pool of quiet dusk. The biscuits went into a little pile, some leaning against each other, already softening a little in the moist morning air. Finally, Ari unscrewed the cap of the flask. A gentle puff of steam rose, carrying the aroma of chamomile, mint, and a hint of lemon. The scent mingled with the forest air, drifting up toward the branches where it seemed to linger like a friendly greeting. They sat down on the blanket with a sigh that felt like setting down something heavy they had been carrying all week. The blanket warmed quickly under them. The moss beneath it gave a gentle, springy support, as though the forest wanted them to be comfortable. The trees continued to wake. High above, leaves turned their faces toward the growing light. The first true beams of sun slipped through gaps in the canopy, brushing the trunks with strokes of gold. Tiny insects began their day's wandering, tracing delicate paths along the bark. Somewhere close by, a squirrel scampered up a tree, then paused halfway, as though it too sensed that this morning was softer than most. Ari poured themselves a cup of tea. The steam rose in a soft spire, curling and fading into the still air. They wrapped their fingers around the warm metal, letting the heat soak into their skin. They took a slow sip, and the warmth flowed down into their chest, spreading through their body in a gentle wave. With every sip, the forest seemed to grow cozier. The sounds of the outside world, the distant clatter of village life and human concerns, had no place here. Time felt thicker, more fluid, as though each moment could stretch and soften and hold more peace than usual. As Ari ate, they listened. The waking trees spoke in gestures and sensations rather than words. They spoke in the way light and shadow shifted along the ground, in the slight tightening and loosening of roots beneath the soil. They spoke in the creak of branches adjusting, in the soft crackle of bark, expanding as it drank in warmth and moisture. Sitting there, Ari could almost feel the memories held in each ring of wood, the slow stories spun over decades and centuries. They could feel the deep contentment of roots resting in cool earth, the quiet joy of leaves unfurling in spring, the peaceful acceptance of leaves drifting down in autumn. They could feel a patience so vast that it made their own worries seem very small. There was a sense, too, of welcome, as if the trees were acknowledging Ari's presence not as an interruption, but as a gentle addition to the morning. A single warm breath in a forest full of slow, steady breathing. A small figure emerged at the edge of the clearing, no bigger than a rabbit, though it walked upright. Its body seemed woven from slender twigs and green shoots. Tiny leaves grew along its arms and shoulders, and where a face might have been, there was instead a soft glow, like sunlight filtered through a single leaf. It paused, watching Ari with quiet curiosity. Ari smiled, setting down their cup of tea. They had seen the twig folk before, though never very close. The waking of the trees often brought these little forest spirits out, drawn to warmth and stillness and the scent of shared food. "Good morning," Ari said again, just as softly as before. The twig folk tilted its head, leaves rustling faintly. Its glow brightened, then dimmed, like a shy nod. Cautiously, it stepped closer, each movement delicate and light, barely disturbing the moss beneath its feet. Ari broke off the corner of a biscuit and placed it on the edge of the blanket, then leaned back, giving the little being space. For a moment, the clearing held its breath. Then the twig folk approached the crumb of biscuit, placed tiny twig hands on its edges, and lifted it. Though it had no mouth, the crumb slowly disappeared, and as it did, the leaves along its shoulders deepened in color, turning from pale green to a richer, more vibrant shade. The spirit's glow warmed, like sunlight passing through a thicker canopy. Satisfied, it placed one hand flat against the moss, as though returning some of what it had been given. Under its palm, a tiny patch of clover stirred, its leaves lifting and uncurling, a new sprig joining the others. Then, with another rustle of leaves, the twig folk stepped back and melted into the shadows between the roots, its presence gently absorbed into the forest once more. Ari watched it go, feeling a soft glow in their chest, as if a little of that forest magic had lingered with them too. They finished their bread and apple in slow, unhurried bites. Between each, they sipped tea and watched the morning unfold. Sunlight moved lazily across the clearing, tracing unseen paths. A small flock of birds flitted through the branches overhead, pausing now and then to peck at seeds or to sing a few notes before moving on. Somewhere deeper in the forest, a stream sang its low, steady song. Its water slid over stones and roots, smoothing them over seasons, polishing them into rounded shapes. Every so often a breeze wandered through, stirring the leaves, adding a soft murmuring chorus to the air. Ari lay back on the blanket, cradling the empty cup against their chest. They looked up at the canopy above, at the intricate web of branches and leaves. Patches of sky glimpsed between them, pale blue and gently bright. Clouds drifted slowly, their edges tinged with gold. As they watched, the shapes of the leaves seemed to shift and flow, forming patterns that made no sense and yet felt soothing in their randomness. The branches seemed to move almost imperceptibly, like the rise and fall of a sleeping chest. The trees were fully awake now, but their wakefulness was nothing like the sharp alertness of a busy morning in the village. It was a kind of aware rest, a living stillness. The forest existed in a state of quiet attention, noticing everything without needing to do anything about any of it. In that stillness, Ari's own thoughts began to slow down in earnest. The concerns that had followed them into the morning, half-finished tasks, unanswered questions, vague worries about tomorrow, seemed to dissolve at the edges. They grew thin and transparent, like mist in sunlight, until they were no more substantial than the shadows that pooled beneath the roots. Here, beneath the waking trees, nothing demanded urgency. The only task was to be present, to breathe, to listen, to rest. Softly, almost unconsciously, Ari's breathing fell into the same cadence as the forest's own rhythm. In and out, each breath matched the imagined rising and falling of sap, the slow movement of water in the roots, the gentle sway of branches. Time drifted. It might have been an hour that passed, or only a handful of moments. In the forest, such measurements did not matter. The quality of the day changed instead in subtle ways. The light grew warmer, the shadows deeper. The stream's song rose a little, then softened again. Somewhere far off, a deer stepped through the undergrowth, its hooves placing careful, soft impressions in the soil. Ari dozed, though they would not have called it sleep. It was a drifting rest, a light surrender in which their body relaxed completely while their awareness floated gently between dreams and waking. The blanket cradled them, the moss supported them, the forest watched over them. In that drifting state, Ari felt as if they were no longer separate from the trees. They imagined their arms as branches stretching outward to meet the sky. They imagined their spine as a trunk rooted deep into the earth, drawing up strength and calm. They imagined their breath as wind, moving softly through leaves, wrapping around bark, stirring the tiniest of green shoots. The forest accepted this imagining without question. It had seen many such moments before, many humans who had come seeking rest beneath its watchful branches. Each one had brought their own worries and desires, their own stories, and each one had found that in the presence of these waking trees, their stories grew quieter, less urgent. Eventually, Ari stirred, not because they needed to, but because the light had reached a new angle, turning the leaves overhead a softer, more mellow green. Their eyes opened slowly. Their muscles stretched lazily, like a cat uncoiling after a nap. They sat up and reached again for the flask, pouring the last of the tea into the waiting cup. It was only lukewarm now, but the herbs had steeped longer, their flavors deepening. Ari drank it with quiet appreciation, feeling the liquid spread through them like a final gentle embrace. The forest watched, unhurried. A few petals drifted down from somewhere high above, landing softly on the blanket. They were pale and translucent, touched with pink at the edges, like fragments of a slow, silent snowfall. Ari brushed one lightly with a fingertip, marveling at the way it caught the light, then let it rest where it had fallen. The trees, fully awake now, seemed to hum with contentment. They had greeted the day. They had acknowledged the presence of this quiet human and of the little twig folk and the birds and the deer and all the unseen creatures that moved within their shadows. They stood together in their circle, rooted deeply, listening to the earth's gentle turning. Ari knew they would have to leave eventually. The path back to the village was waiting. The small tasks of everyday life would remain, steady and patient in their own way. But for now, there was no need to hurry. They slowly gathered what remained of their picnic, wrapping the bread, corking the jam, gently tucking the biscuits back into their tin. They wiped the cup with a cloth and screwed the cap onto the flask. Each movement was deliberate, a part of the ritual of being here, of arriving and departing without disturbing the delicate balance of the clearing. Before folding the blanket, Ari stood and stepped barefoot onto the moss. The ground was cool and slightly damp, cushioning their feet. They closed their eyes and let the sensation soak in, a reminder that the earth was always there, solid and steady beneath them. They placed a hand once more on the nearest tree. "Thank you," they whispered. The bark beneath their palm felt warmer now. A faint vibration thrummed under their fingers, like a quiet, wordless acknowledgement. A single leaf from somewhere above let go of its stem and drifted down, spiraling gently through the air, landing beside Ari's foot. They picked it up, careful not to bend or tear it. Its surface was smooth, veined with the palest traces of green. They tucked it into the basket between the cloth and the tin of biscuits as a soft memento of the morning. Then they folded the blanket, its once spread warmth gathered neatly into a square. They placed it on top of the food, lifted the basket, and stood for a final moment in the center of the clearing. The trees were very still now. Their wakefulness settled into a state of serene presence. They did not ask Ari to stay, nor did they urge them to go. They simply watched, Ari turned and walked toward the path. The forest accompanied them for a while. Sunlight came in small, forgiving patches, warming their face, their hands. Birds hopped along branches overhead, sometimes flying ahead as if guiding them. The stream's song followed at a distance, threading through the undergrowth, a low, constant melody. With every step, Ari carried the forest's calm with them. Their shoulders remained loose. Their breath stayed slow. The small leaf in the basket seemed to glow quietly, a little piece of green waking held in woven wicker. When they reached the edge of the trees, the world brightened again. The fields stretched outward wide and open, their grasses swaying in a light breeze. The village roofs glimmered in the distance, touched by sunlight. Far away, someone laughed, a faint echo that drifted over the hills. Ari paused at the threshold, 1 foot in shadow, 1 in light. They looked back at the forest, at the dark, tall trunks and the soft green canopy. The trees, now fully part of the day, watched silently. They would be there tomorrow and the next day and the next season, dreaming slowly through their waking, waiting for the next quiet visitor who might come with a basket and a blanket and a tired mind. Then Ari stepped into the open, taking the forest with them in the steady pace of their steps and the peaceful ease of their breath. As they walked, the memory of the picnic beneath the waking trees settled into them like a gentle weight, not heavy but grounding, something they could hold on to whenever the world felt too loud, too bright, too fast. They knew that in busy moments they could close their eyes and feel again the softness of the moss, the warmth of the tea, the hum of sap rising, the shy glow of the twig folk, the slow, patient presence of the trees. They could remember the way time had stretched and softened, the way their thoughts had faded into the background, leaving only the simple comfort of being. And in time, the day would go on. The sun would move across the sky, shadows would lengthen, and evening would arrive. The waking trees would slide gently into their own kind of rest again, never fully asleep, never fully awake, always listening, always breathing with the world. Now, as the story grows quieter, the scene fades. The forest becomes a soft impression, a gentle shadow at the back of the mind. The clearing with its moss and blanket and little forest spirit drifts farther away, as if wrapped in a veil of evening mist. What remains is the feeling of it, the feeling of lying back on a soft blanket, of being held by the earth, the feeling of warm tea in the hands, the feeling of cool, dappled light on the skin, the feeling of trees, vast and calm, watching over you with a patience older than memory. Let that feeling fill the space around you now. Your body, wherever it is resting, can sink a little deeper into comfort. Imagine that same moss beneath you, supporting you in quiet green softness. Imagine a blanket of your favorite texture wrapped just right around you. Not too tight, not too loose, perfectly warm. Your breath can slow, unforced, easy, in and out. With each inhale, imagine drawing in the forest's calm, the steady rhythm of roots and branches. With each exhale, imagine releasing anything that still clings from the day. Stray worries, fragments of conversation, lingering tension. In and out. Thoughts may still drift through. That is all right. They can move through you like birds passing between branches, like clouds crossing a quiet sky. You do not need to hold them. You do not need to push them away. Let them come. Let them go. The waking trees stand in silent companionship at the edge of your awareness. They are not demanding. They are not judging. They are simply there, as they have always been, as they will always be, anchored deep in the earth, reaching gently toward the sky. You are safe here. You are allowed to let go. If your eyes are not already closed, they may grow heavy now, lids soft and easy. The muscles in your face can slacken. The space between your brows can smooth. Your jaw can loosen, your tongue resting comfortably. Your shoulders drift down, your hands grow still. The story has done its work. The picnic is over, the basket carried home, the blanket folded. The trees remain, breathing in the night, watching over the forest, patient and kind. You can rest just as Airy rested beneath their branches. You can drift, floating on the quiet hum of the world, cradled by something ancient and kind. Let sleep approach you like a gentle path through the trees, soft and shaded. Step onto it and let it carry you step by slow step into deeper stillness. The waking trees are far away now, and yet close enough to touch, close enough to dream of. Their presence hums quietly in the distance as you sink deeper and deeper and deeper into rest. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.